Hi, thanks very much. There may have been a problem with translation there. I don't play bass. I play the bass guitar. There's no fish involved with what I do. But hopefully you guys have had some great conversations with each other, made some connections, joined the dots. One of the things I've been hearing about when I've been having conversations is that the world of business is just accelerating, it's moving faster, and it's getting really hard to understand the needs of the business, particularly from an L&D perspective, where we need to rapidly upskill our people. So a little bit about us. Novo Nordisk, we produce a huge amount of the world's insulin, okay, helping people with diabetes live normal lives. So we're a good pharma company. We've got over 50,000 employees in over 70 countries, and those employees are some of the brightest people in the world. We have scientists working on research to cure rare diseases. Our audience goes from our really super smart scientists to our really super smart marketing functions, distribution, manufacturing, analytics. Like any big org, every function we have to look after. And we've got so many languages, so many needs across this population, we need to understand that. So that's kind of my job to do. My background is as an analyst. I fell into L&D about 3 years ago, having worked for media companies, banks, retailers, looking at customer behavior and looking at operational performance. I fell into L&D and I noticed that there's a big fear of using data. And as we're now moving into a world where skills are becoming super important, I wanted to spend some time just talking with you guys, sharing how we look at skills data and how this is not daunting. It's one thing looking at data, but it needs to be actionable. Okay, we have to not just look at charts and say, oh, that's interesting. We have to do something with it in order to help our learners. When we look at skills data, it can be complicated, but it's no more complicated than 2 data points, okay? And we use Degreed to capture data from our learners. Everything I'm going to talk about today is based on 2 data points. One of those is a skill or an area of interest for an employee, and one of these is how good they think they are. Self-rating, okay? That's how it works in Degreed. There's issues with that on an individual basis, but at a macro level, it makes sense. So when we ask our employees to tell us the things that they're interested in and how good they are, we start learning about them. And the more times we ask that question, the more we learn about them. So if we ask one person in our business what they're interested in and how good they are at things, we might see they're interested in Excel, Access, presentations, public speaking, and they've scored themselves on these areas. Now, my job is to pull that together to try and understand what we can do with it. Okay? So we group these up into skill groups, right? People use various different taxonomies, and we'll cover that in a bit. But using these 2 simple data points, we know that this person has data skills, communication skills, and they need help with their data skills more, okay? Because they're weaker there on average across the skills. It's no more difficult than this, until we ask a big population, of course. Our employees have told us that they're interested in about 2,500 different skills. And it starts to get a bit messy at that point. So what we have to do is take these 2,500 skills and package them up into something that's easy for us to understand and easy for us to invest in content to help them. We do that, we put them into 37 categories. The way we tried to do that initially was to be really cute and cool, do some machine learning stuff, looking at the words used when people were putting in the skills and then using a machine to automatically categorize them for us. That was not successful at all. So I sat down for an afternoon and manually put them into buckets. All right? Really horrible way of doing it, but it was one afternoon, and it's allowed us to do everything we do. And that's accessible to everyone, right? You don't have to be a data scientist to do that stuff. What we done was we took out those 2,500 skills, and we looked at how many people were interested in each one, right? We just counted them in Excel, ranked them, the most common ones at the top, the least common ones at the bottom, and that's how we ordered that list. Okay, so the ones that had the biggest number of followers were those that got categorized first, because then it's diminishing returns as we get near the bottom. What this lets us see
Ladies and gentlemen,
is pretty
our
powerful,
program is
or we
about
think
to
it's pretty
begin.
powerful.
Please find your seats and
What you can
silence your
see
cell
is a
phones.
representation on the screen of the 37 groups that we've created. Okay, this isn't real data. We've massaged it a little bit so we don't give away our secret sauce or commercial advantages. But what we can see very easily is that some of our skills are further to the left, some are further to the right. And to explain this chart, the axis at the bottom is the average score for all the skills that are within a category. Okay? So within Degreed, we ask people to say, on a scale of 1 to 8, how would you rate yourself? So that's the rating along the bottom. And the axis going up, the y-axis, is how many people fall within that bucket, have told us they're interested in skills within this category. So hopefully you can see that something's leaping out. Within this data, we've taken our 2,000 skills. We've just asked people 2 questions. What are you interested in? How good are you? And we can instantly see that analytics is a problem, right? It's further to the left than most of the data points, and it's higher up, which means we're more rubbish at it, and lots of people need help. Okay? We're starting to get insights now, really quickly from the data, without any fancy stuff. We can also see that down the bottom, there's a cluster. Okay? And these are all IT-related skills. And again, that's interesting if we want to be more focused on digitalization and a more data-savvy company. If we can see right away that actually less people are interested in data skills, and the people who are interested in them really aren't very good or confident in those. So this is looking at the 37 groups at a macro level. And for the business, that's useful because we can see broadly and strategically.
Ladies and gentlemen, our program is about to begin. Please find your seats and silence your cell phones.
They've got specific needs as individuals. Okay, they've got their own wants, their own desires, their own areas of interest. So we then can burst that down into the 2,500 categories. Now, remembering that we've got over 50,000 employees in 70+ different countries, speaking lots of different languages, covering a whole multitude of functions, this chart shows the business everywhere, right? This is our world view of skills across our population. So it's similar axis across the bottom. What's the average rating for these skills? The axis going up, how many people have rated themselves or shown an interest in it? That way, again, we can target and invest in content for these people. But there's a few interesting areas on here. One is just this average skill rating. Okay, so 3.96. On its own, it's not very exciting. But that gives us a benchmark. Okay, across all of our people, all of our skills, we are 3.96 good out of 8. Over on the left are our 37 categories. So I mentioned we took the 2,500 skills, we put them together. So we've got ethics, finance, analytics, marketing, management, leadership. And this lets us very quickly navigate and isolate the skills that we want to look at, if there's any particular initiative or interest in the business for going deep. What we have to be aware of is that although we might want to isolate finance skills, that's not necessarily representative of our population who work in finance, right? So we have a people section as well where we can filter by different groups. We tie our skills data to our HR data so that we can look at differences in skill confidence by gender, by job area, by country, by tenure, by age, by anything we want. We can very, very quickly hone in and understand the needs of a population. So we might have people working in finance who hold finance skills. So we select finance people, finance skills, and we have a view of those people. We might have people in finance interested in project management skills. So we can select finance, project management, and then we can see that really quickly. This is just an example of how we use it. The key message is we can understand very quickly how confident our female colleagues are in any topic compared to our male colleagues, right? Now that sounds, why would you look at things by gender? It really does matter, okay? We do see that our female colleagues do have less confidence in the same skills as the male colleagues do in the same roles. And that doesn't mean that they're less capable, it just means there's maybe a cultural issue there or a barrier. Okay? We can see the analytic skills we have across the business, where we're strong, where we're weak, okay? Machine learning versus web analytics, for instance. So any question we get from anyone in the business, any senior Dude comes in, or dudette, and says, what does our workforce look like? We've got that on hand, and we can answer any question in a few seconds. We use that data in other ways, okay? So we're just looking at it there, and that's interesting. But just looking at data doesn't do anything. It doesn't change anything. We have to make it actionable, okay? So what we do is we also use that skill data combined with content that's on Degreed to promote things to people, okay? So we pull out the skills data, and if we've got new content in project management, for instance, or influencing, we send an email to people, a text, whatever, we communicate with them to say, hey, we've got this thing. We know you're interested in this thing, and we know that you're not very confident in this thing. So we think it's going to be of use to you, right? Now, that's quite a new way of us doing things. Historically, or during COVID, we heard from our employees that they were getting too many emails. Okay, people were home working, far too many emails, none of them were relevant, or very few of them were relevant. So now when we want to promote a course on influencing, instead of going out to an area, perhaps we want to encourage influencing within our sales function, instead of going out to that whole sales function saying, here's an influencing thing, we will now talk to the 80 people who have expressed an interest in it and the 80 people who will benefit the most from it. Now, we tailor these communications in lots of other ways. We do enhance the skill data with other stuff in some occasions, such as where we're allowed to use it, the personality profiles, okay, to help speak to people in the way they want to be spoken to. But largely, this is still the 2 data points. We know you're interested in a skill, and we know how good you are at that skill, or how good you perceive yourself to be. Super easy stuff. So, using these 2 data points, we can understand our strengths and weaknesses across our business super quickly. We know where any investment we make will have the biggest impact for the greatest population. And we can track growth in skills and our skill categories over time. Because when people complete something, if they've rated themselves in Excel, and then they've completed a course in Excel, they get an email saying, hey, you've done a course in Excel. Do you want to re-rate yourself? You were a 3. This has a few benefits, okay? One, it just lets us see how our skills are growing over time. People who were a 3 are now a 4. How does that shift? It also lets us rate our content, okay? If we have 2 pieces of content on Excel, for instance, and we have 2 people complete those pieces of content, and we ask them to re-rate themselves, and person A was a 3 beforehand, and afterwards they're still a 3, and person B was a 3 beforehand, and afterwards they're now a 4, we can weight to that content, okay, so that item B is better than item A. I know one of the frustrations we get with Degreed is it's hard to find things. Some of the feedback we get is that it's great, you know, we've got all these Excel courses that any employee can go in and get, but when I type in Excel, I don't want 15,000 responses, right? I want the one that's most relevant for me, where I am, that's been rated highest by my peers, people like me, when they've completed it, what have they thought? So we can use skill data to look at things that way. And this is what skill growth looks like. When we looked at skill growth, we thought it was going to be one way, okay? So people have a level that they're at, they consume content, and then they get better, right? That was our common assumption. But it turns out we've got really honest employees, and when we get people to re-rate themselves, often they will rate themselves lower, okay? So they thought they were fantastic, they've explored the subject, and then they said, no, I'm not as good as I thought I was. And they've scored themselves lower. And I love that. I love that honesty. I don't care if a skill goes backwards. That tells me something about that learner's self-awareness. And that's good. If someone becomes more self-aware, that's not a bad thing. If somebody's rated themselves higher, that's a good thing. That probably tells us that the content's quite good, right? And certainly, as more people rate it, and we see more people moving, that confirms that idea. What really worries me, though, is when people complete something and that doesn't move forward or backwards. Okay, that tells us that the content just does nothing for them. Again, it's just 2 simple data points. When someone completes something, what are you interested in? How do you rate yourself? Now, Degreed is an awesome tool, in my opinion, for looking at formal learning, pushing content to people, making content available for people. One of the things I see in learning, or one of the models in learning is this 70-20-10. And I had a couple of conversations about it last night where people said, oh, I don't agree with 70-20-10. And you know, there's pros and cons to it. But we can use our skills data out with Degreed to actually do some cool things, okay, to really help our employees, to engage them, to grow them, and take that stuff that we're doing in the 10 right out into the 20 and the 70. So Degreed makes content available for the 10. But with the 20, for instance, with our skills data, we can make connections across the business. What we want to do is know that somebody somewhere in the business is rubbish at something. They're really not good. And we want to know that someone somewhere in the business is really good at something. Okay? We want to put those people together and say, have a coffee date. Now, we might do that for people within a certain area. We might say, within a sales team, someone's low confidence in overcoming objections, someone's high confidence overcoming objections, let's put them together. But as the world becomes much, much bigger and much more complicated, and we need better connections across our business, and we need to forge new alliances and get functions talking to each other more meaningfully and impactfully than they have in the past, we can also do this across functions because we have those two data points. We've got the skill people are interested in, we've got their score. So we can connect finance with engineering by finding finance people with an interest in any skill and find people in engineering with an interest in any skill and pair them together based on their skill level. So the example on the screen here, once they do the match, which is just based on those two simple data points, they each get an email. Right? In this example, we've got Kathy, who is a colleague of mine. It's a shame she couldn't come over for this. She loves karaoke, and she'd probably be singing and stuff as we've done this. Really wonderful, super colleague. But in here, the example we've got is that she's been matched with me because I've said that I'm good at analytics on Degreed. And Kathy said she's not so good on analytics on Degreed. So we're invited to come together. Kathy has then put a little blurb around the things she's interested in. I put a little bit of blurb around me. So we've got an introductory note. Okay, so again, this is super easy stuff, and we don't need any tools or technology to do this. We're taking the skills data from Degreed. We're looking at who's bad in a topic, or less good, rubbish, whatever word you want to use, and who's good, and putting them together. We're then spitting that into Word. Okay, sending out emails. There's no cleverness to this, but it's making data actionable. It's forming alliances across the business, and it's taking our skills out and doing something with them. Similarly to the 20, we can use that skill data to look at the 70. Okay? Now, with both of these initiatives that we're running, it's important to say that we have asked colleagues to opt in. Okay, we're not just going into Degreed, taking out their data and saying, hey, we're going to match you up with a random stranger. We have asked people to opt in. But we can also make a list available of skills across the business. So where this becomes useful is if you are a project manager, for instance, and you want to know what skills do I have in the business. I want people who are really confident in finance and procurement things. They can go into the database and see who is in our business who has those skills. They can also then see who has those skills who works within engineering for that business context, the additional business context that comes with that. It also means we can get more value from our data, and projects can deliver more value, because rather than just delivering the thing that they're tasked with delivering, they can also use it to upskill employees. So a project manager can go in and look for people, assuming it's not a very important project, and look for people who are weak in an area who are looking to develop. So they can go in and see that Derek Mitchell sits in human resources and is a beginner at statistical analysis. So I'm going to use this opportunity within my project to bring him into my agile team, because there's going to be statistical analysis within that, and give him exposure to it. Okay? Again, it's using those data points, not just looking at them, but it's about making them actionable, benefiting the learner and benefiting the business. And we're always cognizant that those two things must be true in order for us to use data. It has to benefit not just the business, but also the learner. Other things we can do with 2 data points, what are you interested in, how good are you, is we can look into the future to an extent. Okay? So if we know as our business we need in 5 years' time to have lots of data scientists, and we know that at the moment in our business we've got lots of administrators, one of the problems is we're going to have to go out at some point and buy in lots of data scientists unless we upskill the people we've got. Now, because we've tied our skill data to our HR data and we know where everyone works and what their job is, what we can do is we can say, okay, what skills do data scientists hold? What skills do administrators hold? Do they share any skills? The skills that they share, we can develop. The ones that they don't share, we can focus on for data scientists. If they share no skills at all, if there's no commonality, what roles sit between these two different areas of knowledge? So we use our 2 simple data points to understand that, to look for synergies across job roles so that we can plan for the future and know how to get someone from an administrator position to a data scientist position with the least effort in terms of giving them the skills that they need and not the skills that they don't need, building up the skills that they already have and that they share with other functions. So that's how we're using data really easily, how we're using it for the 70-20-10, and I'm aware that I'm standing between you and lunch, which is a really uncomfortable place to be. So that's it, essentially, from me. And I've left loads of time in here for questions, because we've got a lot of brain in the room, and we've got lots of experience, so ask questions. And if I don't know the answer, someone in this room will. Cool.
Hey there. I really loved what you had to say about the matching folks and sending out the comms. This is a very tactical question, but I'm just wondering, was there any kind of automation that you were able to do for that? So when people opt in and you match them and you send out an email.
Yeah. Awesome question. Okay, let's go right into the detail here. So what we do is we use Alteryx to go in, pull the data out of Degreed. We use Alteryx because it's no code, right? So if I get hit by a bus, anyone can pick it up. That data then comes down and makes matches based on the skill and the skill level. Those matches are then output to Excel in a CSV, right? None of this stuff's clever. We're just bootstrapping this. It automatically outputs to Excel. When we open up the Word document that's the template, it then scrapes the information from Excel and sends out the emails, right? Personalizing it with the person's name, which has been pulled in from Degreed or from the HR data, personalizing it with the skill that we're matching them on, personalizing it with their rating. It's no more difficult than that. Does that answer the question? Awesome.
Hello.
Hi.
I have 2 questions, one about data fidelity and one about data access. So you alluded to it a little bit at the beginning in terms of the self-assessed data.
Yeah.
I was wondering if you could speak about whether you found any limitations in only using self-assessed data in this model, whether you've thought about supplementing with maybe higher fidelity data, or whether you don't think that that's a necessary next step.
That's awesome. So data quality is a big problem when we get down to people self-rating. So at a population level, when we've asked 10,000, 20,000, 50,000 people to rate themselves on a skill, and they give us an answer, and they've rated themselves higher on that skill than another skill, I'm pretty confident that they're stronger in that skill than that skill, or at least they perceive to be, and confidence is a lot to do with skills. When it comes down to an individual basis, right, I think I'm fantastic at things, and I'm not. I'm rubbish. And I think I'm rubbish at things, and I'm really good at them, right? Like, evidently not public speaking. So there are flaws, okay? There's a percentage of the population where we will get it wrong when we're sending out comms saying, this person's really good at a thing, and this person's really bad at a thing. Grab a coffee. There is a risk we're putting someone who's not as good as they think they are with someone who's better than they think they are. Okay? But that's why we're asking them to get a coffee. There's no one's going to die with this stuff, right? This is not curing diseases. This is just saying people told us what they're interested in, how good they are. Let's put them together, invite them for a coffee, and that will come out in the wash, right, when they're having the conversation that person A is better than person B. That in itself might give them more confidence, right? It might prompt person B, who thinks they're great, to go off and do some additional development because they're not as good as they think they are. So that's still a valuable exercise. Do we supplement it with data from other sources? So we are exploring just now pulling data in from CVs, for instance, pulling data in from success factors and people's development plans and what have you to get a greater level of granularity. But at the minute, we're largely just using these 2 data points.
Yeah, and I love sorry, can I ask another question? I love the use of the word confidence. I'll be stealing that, I think, because it's a great way to qualify that self-assessed data. When it comes to data access, especially when we're talking about people looking for skills to match to work
yes.
and those career journeys, I'm wondering about whether you've made that data accessible beyond your HR functions. Are you putting it in the hands of your leaders and your managers? And have you run into any issues with sort of democratizing that data of how people have self-assessed?
Yeah. So today, I'm just talking about skills data. We do lots with data. We go incredibly deep, and some of the data we use is highly personal. Some of it is sensitive. And the way we democratize data within Novo Nordisk is that everyone can see it, everybody, anywhere, but they can't see who they're seeing. Okay, so all the data is anonymized. So anyone, if we've got someone working in an operating line in Wuhan in China, they can go in and see exactly the same as the CEO can see in terms of what are our skills across the business, what content are people consuming, all of that stuff. But they can't see who. That data is held very securely by us. Within the 20 and the 70 examples I gave, part of the process is that people have to opt in. So I worked with legal to say, when we ask people to opt in, what disclaimers do we have to have about people, the privacy notices we have to have, etc. How explicit do we have to be in how we're using this information? So when people opt in for their data to be shared with project managers, for instance, they're under no illusions that someone will see their skill level and who will be able to. And of course, not anyone in the business can see that, right? That is on a needs basis.
Hey, Derek. My name's Josh. I'm with CDM Smith. Really enjoyed your presentation. Nice job.
Thank you.
My question was about what type of software was used to generate the visualizations that you showed us earlier, but I think you might have answered it. Was it Alteryx?
No. So we do use Alteryx. We're bootstrapping, right? We don't have time to wait for IT to build us tools, right? When we done our skills categories taking the 2,000, putting them into 37 categories, the reason we've done that in my team is so we can move quickly, okay? It's very easy for L&D leaders to go out and speak to McKinsey and lots of companies to buy in taxonomies and then have meetings for years that go on to say, which tax, will we use this one or this one? What's our business? And it goes on, right? No. In an afternoon, we're going to do it. The tools we're using is Alteryx because it's drag and drop. We use Alteryx to join our data together for anyone who's not familiar with it. So HR data joins onto learning data, joins onto performance data, joins onto social activity, joins everything together. We visualize that through Power BI. And again, the reason we use Power BI to do the visualizations you saw, it's cheap, it's quick, there's no code. Anyone can go in and use it and build it.
Thank you very much.
Hi, Derek. Thanks
Hi.
for the great presentation. Heather from Allianz. We met once some years ago, so it's exciting to see how this has progressed over the years. And when you put the skill data on the screen, I know it's illustrative, but I noticed a real regression to the mean with the skills data. So my question is less of a technical nature and more about how did you prepare your stakeholders, especially the most senior ones, to see data that might be disappointing?
That's awesome. So in L&D, everyone's terrified of being disappointed. Now, I've probably got colleagues watching this who are going to hate me for saying things. We often, one of the problems in L&D is we don't measure things effectively, right? And we don't measure it effectively mostly because we're worried that we will see that something wasn't good, okay? It's very easy to launch a program, have lots of attendees, look at the feedback, see people enjoyed it, and go, we done a fantastic job, right? What metric was it supposed to impact? Can you tell me that, and we'll see if it affected that metric? No, we can't tell you that, because if you look at it, it might be rubbish, right? It might have had no effect. So let's just stick with our high fives. Similar to the skills data, We make it available to everyone. I don't care if it's disappointing, right? If people think we should be way over here on this skill, right, and we are way over there in this skill, I don't care, frankly. What I care is our employees have told us, in their own words, this is where I am, okay? And if the business doesn't like it, they better do something about it, right? They better invest in that area if it's important to them. If it's not important to them, then they can leave people there. My job is just trying to tell the truth, whether people like it or not.
Thank you. Good presentation. My name is Marcia from Amerisource Bergensen. So one of the things I've struggled with is the predictability of the skills in the future. So I can have a learner that's here at this skill level, and then how do I predict where they're going to go, what they can do, give them insights into that? Have you thought about that next level of the skills piece?
So there's multiple ways of doing this. When we look to the future, obviously we can look at recruitment data and the skills within job ads that are getting posted, right? We can get all that stuff from LinkedIn. There's various sources where we look at growing trends for new skills. In terms of predicting how people are going to grow towards those skills, we can't without data. So one of the things we need to do is when people, and this comes back, a lot of people have talked about tagging content and the importance of tagging content. We've got filtered out there who tag content. The reason it's important to tag content is because if we see somebody's completed something, right, it might be a course A, the metadata, when it's tagged, that tells us that's about Excel, okay? And then when someone completes that thing on Excel, we can ask them, did that help you get better? Again, just by asking the skills questions. So we can know the average movement for people from a certain skill level when they complete that content to the next skill level. We know the piece of content or the pieces of content at this skill level which move people to the next one. So we can start to surface the best pathway or the best pieces of content based on what their peers do. And this is all largely peer-based, okay? When we get feedback for content, that's from their peers, people like them. Okay, people at the same level in the business, with the same tenure, doing the same job. What did they think? How much did they grow? And then we can use that to predict, to an extent, how they're going to grow. There's so many factors there that it's not massively scientific, but we can look at predicted growth. Yeah.
Yeah. This is Vikram here from Capital One.
Hi.
I would be curious to know, how did you measure the success? So like after folks met for coffee and then, like did the skill levels improve, the average skill level go up, or was there a job family that you saw good movement in?
Beautiful. So my team is all about measurement. So I love that. Now, we can't measure business outcomes for the 20 that I give an example of here. And the reason for that is because people might be matched on hundreds of different people, thousands of different people get matched on hundreds of different skills, and their output from that conversation might be different. So we are relying on rather woolly things. After people have had that invitation, firstly, when we send out the invitation, we're looking at how many people have opened that email. Okay? Of the people who opened the email, how many people actually clicked through to set up the date, if you like. We then have to manually survey people. Okay? So we know that our email was sent out on the 4th of June, so another email is automatically triggered on the 4th of July. We're in America. America! So 4th of July is important. And that just says, hey, did you guys actually meet up? Right? That's one of the questions. If you met up, was it useful? What did you do? How did this make a difference to your world? Right? If you didn't meet up, why was that? What got in the way? So, it might be the manager didn't give them time. It might be they lost interest, whatever. So we're simply measuring it, one, through engagement rates when we're sending out communications, and then through a survey to say, did people actually do what they said they wanted to do? And there's all sorts of biases in there, right? I said I was going to go to the gym in January. I didn't, right? And loads of people say they want to opt in to get coaching, and when given the opportunity, they won't. The only way for us to see that currently is just by asking them. But again, it's an automated process that does that. Cool. Any more for any more? Yeah. No, they might not hear you on yeah.
Thank you for that, Derek. Anthony Del Barto with BP. Wanted to ask a question around the opt-in. Can you give us a view into, out of the 19,000 employees, how many did opt in, and can you tell us a little bit about how you encourage the opt-in?
Yeah, cool. So a peek behind the curtain, okay? And this is where this all falls over. And you go, that's the Wizard of Oz. We've only just started doing this. The skills data we have looked at, we've had the charts you saw, we've had them for a long time. Anyone in the business could go in and see our skill levels for a long time. We're a very small team. We had other priorities, such as actually measuring outcomes from our programs and whatnot. So we've kind of done stuff in that area. We had lots of data stitching to do because the world that we look at is big. It's only recently we've said, hang on, we can use this skills data in an actionable way to join people together. So one of the reasons I'm in the US just now is, one, this speech to you awesome people, but it was also to meet up with some people in our plant up in Princeton, because they're the people we're going to be piloting this with. So, yeah, time will tell. Oh, yeah, cool. I love curious minds.
Thank you. I've really enjoyed listening to you. Joanna Lacey from Stellar Bank. So a question I had, you mentioned that one of the trends that shows up in the data is that women are generally less confident in their skills than their male counterparts.
Yep.
Can you give us an idea of an action item you've taken out of that knowledge?
Yeah. So we have to be careful not to discriminate. We have to make sure that everyone has equal opportunity. Okay? We need to make sure that the courses that are available for the men are available for the women, vice versa. Okay? As simple as that. That doesn't mean that we have to promote those courses in the same way to both populations. Okay? If we know that females are underrepresented in a particular area or less likely to go for something, then we focus our activity, and when I say our activity, I don't think I've touched on it a huge amount in here, our marketing activity based on what we know about our employees towards the female demographic. Okay? Now, these might be through simple things like the wording we use, or it might be a bit more blunt force, as in only our women will get a communication. Now, that's not depriving our male colleagues of that opportunity. We're just making bloody well sure that the women know about it, right? We don't want to leave anyone behind. The whole point of learning is that it's a great equalizer and everyone gets the same opportunity. So we act like a marketing function. If we've got a group of people who are underrepresented in an area, we focus on those people. One of the big things in our company, and we're doing really well with it, is more senior female leaders. Now, we're almost at parity in many areas, but there's some areas we're not. So we need to make sure that when we've got opportunities, we're talking to women, encouraging them to go in. When we're looking at the data and saying, oh, this person is weaker, saying they're weaker than this person in this area, so they're no good, we need to account for the fact that women are scoring themselves 2 points lower, right? So we need to average or normalize that a little bit. So there are things we do with the data to try and encourage that and balance it out. Super important. Yeah, it's important. Any more? Or is it lunch? Ah, sorry.
Hi, I'm curious to know when you do your surveys, are you using a blend of something informal like a Teams form? Are you using like Medallia for NFS? How more sophisticated is it?
It's no more sophisticated. So I'm not one for sophistication, right? When I've done talks previously, I want to be known as the laziest guy in L&D. So we go as cheap and as quick as possible. So yeah, we collect it via Microsoft Forms. And we do that for two reasons. One, we can collect the respondent ID, because I hate anonymous surveys. I hate surfacing data that people shouldn't see, but I hate anonymous surveys because we can't do a lot with them. So yeah, we send it out in Microsoft Forms, we get the feedback back, that then falls into an Alteryx flow and it just self-feeds. Yeah, cool. Last chance. Lunchtime. Okay, thank you very much, everyone.